Hey there, Steve Sandhuff here. This video here is about fraudulent judgment in Northern District of Georgia Federal Court related to the Georgia Department of Natural Resources in the state of Georgia. The fraudulent judgment was issued by Judge William Duffy because the state of Georgia said that I owed them attorney fees, that they were entitled to attorney fees for a lawsuit that I filed against State Officer Steve Seitz in his individual capacity for unlawful searches and seizures that occurred in 2005. Now, he was with some federal agents when these unlawful searches and seizures took place, and I won the lawsuit against the federal agents. The state of Georgia agent, Steve Seitz, had a different lawsuit. So my lawsuit against the federal agents was with Judge Thomas Thrash, who I've got nothing but good things to say about. I respect Judge Thrash, and he handled that case well. We didn't win on every element of every claim in the case, but he ruled as a matter of law. He didn't ignore evidence, whereas Judge Duffy literally ignored evidence, black and white, written down evidence that actually showed the state of Georgia was engaging in perjury, because the state of Georgia officer says he was not with the federal agents. Now, on the 14th of July, my lawsuit had said on or about the 14th of July, 2005, this happened. The state of Georgia officer said on the 14th of July he was engaged in a holiday from the 4th of July. But later in the lawsuit, I got the time card that he detailed for the 15th of July, 2005. So the state of Georgia officer says, no, I wasn't with the federal agents on the 14th of July. And that was true. But it was not true that he wasn't with them on the 15th of July doing exactly what I alleged in the lawsuit, where my claim was on or about the 14th of July. The 15th of July would qualify for about. Now, if it was a different year or a different couple months, then that may not qualify. But it was the next day. So the state of Georgia officer says, no, I wasn't with him on the 15th, and he gets out of his lawsuit. I'm sorry, on the 14th. So I presented to Judge Duffy that he was with them on the 15th. And Judge Duffy ignored that evidence, still kept the attorney fee judgment against me. I've never been in a courtroom with Judge Duffy. I would say I don't even know what he looks like, but I've seen him in film talking on YouTube about that human trafficking symposium discussion that he had. So I've seen him and I've seen his picture, but he's not a federal judge anymore. At 66 years old, plus or minus whatever, he's not a federal judge. He's appointed for life, but yet he leaves being a federal judge and he's a mediator or does whatever. Something happened to Judge Duffy. I don't know what it is, but I doubt that anybody that's assigned to being a federal judge would just on their own up and decide, I've had enough, I'm not going to be a federal judge. Now, Judge Duffy's complaints were just astronomical. If you were able to ever see the robing room, he had complaint after complaint after complaint from attorneys about his behavior and his just being a very bad judge. I'm not here to badmouth judges. I've had several judges in these cases, and I've seen where they've done a good job, different judges here and there, and they've ruled based on law and based on facts. They've applied facts to the law, and it is what it is. But Judge Duffy ignored this evidence, and he assigned attorney fees to me in the amount of between $34,000 and $50,000, depending on how you look at it. And he wouldn't change his order after I presented the information that there was fraud upon the court from the state of Georgia. The state of Georgia officer committed perjury. Okay, technically he wasn't there on the 14th, but for him to say he wasn't with them, that's perjury. That's lying by omission. I don't know if there's any place in the record that says, no, I never was with them when they were doing warrantless seizures. I don't know. I can't remember what the record says on that. But we presented to Judge Duffy that this state of Georgia officer was with the federal agents on the 15th. So then the state of Georgia goes and files a lien on my house in state court. Now I've talked to Judge Bishop in Superior Court of Gwinnett County, and he agrees it's expired. I've looked at all the law. So federal judgments are handled by state law because there is no federal law on judgments. So they got a federal judgment against me in federal court. Then they go down to state court in Gwinnett County, clerk of court. They file a lien on my house through filing a FIFA. But they never, ever, ever went into state court and filed anything against me. And they needed to. They needed to perfect it in Georgia because it was only good for 7 years. Yes, it's a federal judgment, but federal judgments are based on state law. State law for Georgia is 7 years, it expires. Then they have a 3-year period to renew it. But after 10 years, they had taken no action in the state of Georgia, except for sending me letters. Of course, I didn't even get the letters. I got the letters, but not all of them. Let's say not all of them. But they're fraud anyway. I can't participate in fraud against the state of Georgia, with the state of Georgia. If I paid that fraudulent judgment, I would be as guilty of engaging as fraud as they are. You follow me? They got a fraudulent judgment against me. And if it was not fraudulent, of course, I would be obligated to pay it. But being that it's fraudulent, and I could show any reasonable human being on planet Earth that it's obtained in fraud, it's black and white. It's not somebody's word against somebody's word. It's somebody's word against some paper that they wrote before they even testified. So that's what it's about. So because they engaged in fraud, I cannot engage in fraud with them. I cannot pay that. Besides that, it's expired. So here's the deal. You got 9/12/60. That's the statute. Title 9, Section 12. That covers the dormancy of judgments. 9/12/61, they would have had to file a sire facias within 3 years of the loss, of the judgment, or maybe of the dormancy. I can't recall. 9/12/60, that's a sire facias continuation. It's not a new action. So the sire facias would be a continuation of the judgment, and it's not a new action. 9/12/63, no service on revival. Copy shall issue to the court. Okay, 9/12/64, trial by jury for issuable defense. I've got an issuable defense. The issuable defense is that the original judgment was obtained by fraud. 9/12/66, action to renew brought in county of residence. So if they want to renew the judgment, they would bring it in the county of my residence, which I am no longer a resident of Georgia. I'm a resident of Louisiana, and they know this. Matter of fact, I'll tell you how they know this for sure. 9/12/67, revival of non-residents served by sire facias by publication in newspaper 2 months prior to the term of the court. The term of the court for this period where it was going to expire was June. The judgment became 10 years old in July, on July 9th. So the term of the court started in June. So they would have had to publish by May a publication and then file, based on that publication, which they never did. So here's what happened to me in May. May of 2019, I got a phone call. First, I got a phone call from my friend Ben Knockan. He's in southern Louisiana, not far from where I'm at. And Ben said, "Steve, I got this weird phone call a minute ago from somebody looking for you." Because at times I've used Ben's address when I first moved here and didn't have a good, stable, location, and I used Ben's address for some of my mail. Not necessarily his phone number, but his address. And Ben said, "This guy called, and he says he's looking for you because some of your paperwork on your property is not filled out correctly, and he was going to help you get that information so you can get that filled out correctly." He said his name was Mike, and he says, "I didn't think the guy was legit." So I asked him questions, and he didn't answer them properly. And he said, I told him to call back after I talked to you. So once Ben talked to me, the guy, I think Ben called him back, or maybe the guy called Ben back. And the guy was stupid. He made comments about the county. And Louisiana doesn't have counties. Louisiana has parishes, which are equivalent to counties, but it's a different name, parish. Ben knew the guy was lying. So he told the guy, that he knew he was lying. So then my mother also got a call within an hour of that time frame. And the phone call that came into my mother, the same guy said that he was with a delivery company trying to get a delivery to me from my mortgage company an expedited letter or expedited mortgage-related document that he had to get to me. And my mother knew it was a scam as well, and she told him basically, well, you can just send it to me. And then, of course, a few days later at her house shows up this demand for this money, this fraudulent money. Now, if anybody in the state of Georgia somehow convinces a court to go forward with any of this, I'm going to personally sue anybody and everybody involved in bringing that forward. The state of Georgia Risk Management Division hired a law firm with an attorney named Biederbender. That was his last name, Biederbender. I can't find the exact spelling of Biederbender's last name. Can't find him in the Georgia bar right now, but Biederbender told them that that judgment was fraud, and they were lucky to ever get that judgment from Judge Duffy. Well, Judge Duffy's been known for crazy things. There's other people that I am in contact with right now that left the state of Georgia because of Judge Duffy, like I did. And then there was this man named William Windsor, and William Windsor was so upset with Judge Duffy and all the corruption, he went around the country filming Lawless in America. He filmed thousands and thousands of hours of film of people's corruption stories, and he ended up spending time in jail in Texas and Idaho and Missoula, Montana, because when he's out there filming corruption, he gets in trouble for filming corruption, and the corrupt people put him in jail, and he's got millions of dollars worth of bond. I don't know where he's at. I'd love to talk to William Windsor. Please contact me if you know how to get a hold of him. There's another man I'm talking to in Jacksonville, Florida, that fled because of the corruption, fled Georgia because of the corruption and because of Duffy's illegal judgment. But I'm going to cut this short, but I'm just giving notice. The judgment in Georgia is fraudulent. Anybody in the state of Georgia, and I mean, don't take it personally. This is stuff from the past, so it's not like you personally are responsible unless you personally were responsible back in, 15 years ago. But anybody moving forward with this, I'm going to hold you personally responsible for perpetuating this fraud. And whatever I could do as far as a lawsuit with you, I will file. And you can see before, I've handled pro se lawsuits before. I've gotten judges to overturn their own decisions based from summary judgment motions based on my pro se legal arguments. I'm not saying I'm a great lawyer. I'm not trying to be a lawyer. Don't want to be a lawyer. Don't want to be in court. If I need to hire an attorney, I'll hire an attorney. I got family. We got money. If we need to come up with money, there'll be money for lawsuits. I got attorneys connections in Georgia. Let it go. Leave it alone. And don't bother me anymore. That's your information. Because you bothered me last time, right before July, right before it expired. I got that letter sent to my mother's house. I'm not in Georgia anymore. My mother's not the location for service by mail. I'm in Louisiana. You know my address. You repeated it to my mother on the telephone. You know where I'm at. Come down here and serve me. Get your federal judgment transferred to Louisiana, and we'll deal with it in Louisiana, because Louisiana follows the Georgia law in 7 years as well. So, I mean, if you want to go forward with it, we'll battle it, and you'll have lawsuits filed in your name. Whatever person takes action is going to have a personal lawsuit against them. That's not a promise. I mean, that's not a threat. That's a promise. That's all I've got to say. Hope you enjoyed the video, and feel free to comment one way or the other. Goodbye.